Yes, on to policy. Our three guests with us today are all their party spokespersons on welfare, so we thought we should take a closer look at their plans for the benefits system. All three parties prioritise tackling youth unemployment. Labour's Future Jobs Fund provides mandatory work or training for under 25s after 10 months out of work. If they don't accept placements, their benefits are cut. The Tories would be stricter, introducing benefit cuts after 6 months. They would place a greater emphasis on the private and voluntary sectors to provide training or work placements. And the Liberal Democrats propose a voluntary placement scheme. On the long-term unemployed, aged 25 and over, both Labour and the Conservatives propose to cut benefits if they refuse job offers. The Tories say if there are no reasonable jobs available, they would have to do community work to get the dole. Labour plans a national rollout of the Better Off in Work guarantee, which promises to make people at least £40 a week richer in employment than on benefits. And both Labour and the Tories also propose to reassess the claims of people on incapacity benefit. Labour will assess 1.5 million claims by 2014. The Tories say they will reassess 2.6 million by 2012. The Liberal Democrats say they will ensure practical help for disabled people when they apply for jobs using Job Centre Plus, as well as the voluntary and private sectors. And the party proposed to simplify the system and fix tax credits awards for 6-month periods. Well, our politicians are still with us. Can I turn to you, first of all, Yvette Cooper in Birmingham? Now, the Labour manifesto said in 1997, we will be the party of welfare reform, and yet there are 2.6 million people still claiming incapacity benefit. You failed.
Well, no, we've seen some drops in the number of people claiming long-term sickness benefits. We've also in the process of introducing a new assessment which focuses on what people can do, not what people can't do. It's finding about 60% of people are able to work and are able to find some jobs, and that's now being rolled out to all the people who are currently still claiming long-term benefits, so that all go through the new test. But I should also just correct something that you said in your previous report as well, because in fact our guarantee of job, work or training starts for young people at 6 months, not at 10 months. They are required to take up one of those offers, and so no young person can just stay on benefit. If they turn down a good job offer with no reason, then they would have their benefit cut straight away. And it is the big difference between our approach and the Conservatives is that we will guarantee people jobs. We're funding real jobs through the Future Jobs Fund. The Conservatives would axe. The only thing they are guaranteeing people is a bit of private sector advice, which
Yvette
we already
Cooper,
do.
can I just come back, though, to the central issue? That's fine. You've set out your stall and we'll ask Teresa May. I mean, David Freud, who was your advisor before he went over to the Conservatives, has said Labour remain timid in their approach, refusing to commit to proper back-to-work support for those they have written off for the last 12 years. You have failed to deal with people on incapacity benefit. Otherwise, there wouldn't be 2.6 million people. It is the main contention. You've had 13 years. Why haven't you tackled it in the way that you have consistently promised to do?
Well, that's simply not true. In fact, we saw in previous recessions, you saw the number of people on those long-term sickness benefits.
I'm not talking about recession. I'm not talking about recession, Yvette Cooper.
But it is important the impact the recession has. I know, but the impact of the recession is important.
But you failed to tackle it before the recession. Even in the boom times, you failed to do it, because even one of your former ministers, Frank Field, has said we must acknowledge that the government's New Deal and making work pay strategies have failed to get many unemployed people into work, even at the height of the boom.
No, we saw very big drops in the number of people who were unemployed before the recession started. But you asked particularly about people on incapacity benefit. We had a 30-year increase in the number of people who were on incapacity benefit. We stopped that rising, put a stop to that, and started to get the numbers coming down.
Okay, Yvette Cooper, can I
drop in the number of people on those benefits during the recession? In the 1990s recession, it went up by 450,000. In this recession, the number of people on inactive benefits has dropped by 70,000.
We're not going to talk about the past recession, because we are talking about the current state and the promises that Labour made. But as far as the Conservatives are concerned, Teresa May, what are you actually going to do that's any different? In fact, the policies, you agree with what the government is now finally suggesting to do. there really isn't anything between the two. You're going to spend a bit more on your work programme, but basically you're going to do the same thing.
No, there's a very real difference between us, Jo, and in fact, you've just hinted at it in the questions you've been asking Yvette Cooper, because the key difference with us is that we're looking at helping all those who are unemployed, not simply finding programmes that address the issue of people who've become unemployed as a result of the recession. So we will help more people, we'll intervene earlier, and our focus will be on long-term jobs. Now, what does that mean? It means that we will be covering those 2.6 million people on incapacity benefit. Some of those will not be able to work, but all will be reassessed, and those who are able to work will also go into our work programme, getting real specialist help to get back into the workplace.
What makes you so confident you're going to be able to deal with that incapacity benefit problem any better than the government?
Well, the government hasn't made any attempts to deal with it. The government has simply put people to one side who are on incapacity benefit. They're not providing them with the specialist help, with the welfare to work providers.
Which will cost a lot of money, £1.2 billion.
Which we will do. The government, in fact, for incapacity benefit claimants, is about to scrap the only programme they've had to deal with them, with nothing to replace it. Our work programme will also intervene for young people after 6 months, as you said. It's not mandatory in the government scheme until 10 months, but we will make sure that after 6 months unemployment, a young person is given specialist help to get into long-term work.
Steve Webb, you've listened there to your opponents on this issue. You're proposing voluntary placements. Surely the time for voluntary placements has gone. It's got to be compulsory in terms of getting people back into work.
Well, I mean, looking at the people on incapacity benefit, as you've quite rightly pointed out, there is no real difference between Labour and the Tories. Both of them plan to go through the stock of people and reassign them onto the lower job seekers allowance, essentially as a benefit cut. And I fear that under a Labour or Tory administration, it's going to be about hitting people on benefits harder and harder rather than supporting them.
So
and
how
what
are you
Liberal
going
Democrats are proposing, let me give you an example,
go on.
is what we call a partial capacity benefit. In other words, not saying you either work or you don't work, you're sick or you're not sick. It's based on what you can do, perhaps part-time work, perhaps intermittent work, because at the moment people are afraid to take jobs or to work part-time because they lose benefits, and we need to work with the grain of people, particularly people who've been stuck on benefit for a long time.
Just a very quick yes-no question. If somebody, long-term unemployed or even more recently, turns down the first job offer, will you do what the other two are doing, which is remove their benefits after 2 weeks or after a month?
No, we won't, because what we need to do is look at the demand for work, and there's not really enough of that in the economy at the moment. That's a Liberal Democrat priority, to get the jobs into the economy.
Thank you.